So I'll put this little video together to describe, kind of put it all together for you. So in the approval process setup, and we'll just talk about requisitions because that's what we care about. But if you look at the third stage, department and project approval, what it does first is it evaluates it excludes these categories. So it's pretty much every single rec except for these or SAM categories. And then it goes down, and the first thing it does is it checks for sponsored project approval. And that's simple. Business unit PC is equal to USC SP. So if that's true, if there's any distribution line on the rec, it could be one of 100. If there's any distribution line on the rec that has USC SP as a project business unit on any distribution line, it's going to route to the grants approver. And that's this user list USC SP. And then that's all that notepad stuff I sent you that I sent to Brad at one time. If I scroll down here, I'll find USC SP, and you can see that it's what it does is it basically joins the rec line to rec line distrib to the project manager table, and I think they actually changed this to a union. I think this is an old SQL, but you get the idea. What they're trying to do is they're trying to find all of the project team members for the project for USCSP and that have this planned project role approve one, or the project manager. So it's a union between the project manager of the sponsored project or the team member that has APPRV1. And so this is an example of the Bob's team. This is a internal project, and Bob has this role, approver 1, and so does Elizabeth Reagan. That's why I went to both of them. But let me go back to this. So SP, IP, and they're just pretty straightforward. It just checks the business unit for each one. And they designed this specifically, I think Richard or somebody designed this intentionally, so that if it's project related and there's no project team set up, it'll fall through and then just route to the department approver. And so the department approver is the last step, and it basically says, is there no business unit PC? Is it a department routing, And so I'm going to show you the difference. So on the department approver, we've added this role that filters the selection of people down to only those that have this role. So going back to our SQL objects, if you look at Rec Approval 1, it's pretty straightforward. It's just selecting from that EX approver table. Every approver, it's selecting every approver that has that department, where the department on the requisition, where I had to close my door, where the department on the requisition is between that chart field from chart field 2. Let me show you where that's at. So let me pause the video, I'll navigate to it. So it's here in setup, supply chain, product related expenses, management, approval setup, approver assignment. And I go in and I select approver 1, which is level 1 approval. And this is where we associate users to departments. So you can see Kim has department 622-300, so does Venus. And so what that tells me is that if it's a department routing, by default it's going to route to Kim and Venus. But in addition to that, Kim and Venus also have to have this role in order for requisitions to route to them. And it all works the same way for travel and expenses too. So like if they were going to approve travel, they need the travel version of this. They need a travel role, and it's in the travel approval process set up in the step. So so anyway, that's what this SQL was, this level 1. And I'm looking again at the rec SQL. I'm not showing like the expense SQL. And so let me see what else I need to. Oh yeah, so going back to Bob. So Bob's he's an internal project approver 1. And if you look at the SQL for internal project, there it is there. So it's selecting from This is old, man. God, this is an old document. It's not. It no longer selects from the project activity team. It selects from project team. Oh, I know. I remember now. This was for a while when a couple years ago we converted from project activity to project team. But this is the SQL that's running to route it to Bob. Selecting the rec line distrib to the project team for everyone that has this approver one project role. And that's the team there, so that's why it routed to Bob. And so that was here, USC IP. And by the way, to see the SQL object that's associated to that user list, if you just click on Approvals, User List Setup, and oh, I forgot to copy it. Oh well. Shoot. Let me go back. Make sure we get the right one. Alright, so this one, SC Rec Approve. So that's the SQL object. SCFPV Rec Approve USC IP 1. And you know, you have to have like access to App Designer to see that stuff. And let me just show you what that looks like anyway, so it kind of demystifies it. And I got to get over into VDI. Hang on a second. So here's the VDI I've got going. Here's the, oh, gotta be kidding me. Try that again. So there's the SQL objects that start with SCFPVRec. And so here's the IP one that we were just talking about. And let me expand this so we can see it. I imagine that union's probably still in there. Yeah, it sure is, because maybe, you know, I don't know what I was going to think. I doubt that a transaction would be a budget date would be less than 7/1/2017, but that's how we separated out the old transactions from the new transactions. The old transactions used the project activity team, and then this was something Devin did. They converted all the internal projects. He converted them to like project teams. So. But you can see that's that same SQL we were looking at in Notepad. So I think that's pretty much it. So let me go back and make sure I've got covered everything. So this is just the file name of the SQL object. So then you can see what tables are used to make up the routing. And this is something. You can see I was going through this with Brad a little over a year ago, and he was getting really knee deep in P-card approval and travel approval and all that. And USC IP and CP construction routes using approval 1. SP routes using approval 1 or the project manager. And then CP also routes later on to those assigned CGA. That's a stage further down. I said this is the path Mandy wanted to remove, but Venus indicated it was part of policy, so it wasn't removed. So that's the one email. And then the other one, I think I've sent this one before. Travel, ePro, and payment requests. You know, they have almost identical level 1 and level 2 approval. And it's all, each one of those are based off approval 1 and 2. P-card and team card are different. We pool approval 1 and 2, and we route it to the department approvers. But so this is what I wanted to show you. So travel uses this role. That's the role that's kind of hard coded in the step details. ePro and payment requests use this one, and then P-card and team use this one. So when you look at each of the approval processes, you'll see that role stamped in each one of those steps. So let me go into like ER approval. I think that's one. And there's the employee approval. There's the level 1. So when you look at the department approval for travel, see there's the travel role. So it's very similar to the way ePro and payment requests are done. But for travel, the role's different. And then for P-card, ours is here in the level 2, the department approver. You can see we have our department approval role stamped in there on the procurement card. So the idea then is that, you know, if Kim had the travel approval role, but Venus didn't, and Venus had the ePro approval role, but Kim didn't, you know, that would separate out the routing that way. So I think some of the bigger departments wanted to have a bunch of people, and they wanted, you know, this person approving travel and these other 2 people approving recs, and that's why we did all that role stuff a while back. So I hope that clears it up, and just ping me back if you got any questions.